So the subject matter of this presentation is gamification of therapy, game design and mental well-being. It's a very, very large subject matter, complex one, but we're going to try to go through it and see what the specific principles, specific points that have correlations between therapy, game design, and just mental well-being. So, as I said, my name is David Barron. I've worked as a programmer, artist, designer in the game industry for over 10 years now. I've worked for several studios, from AAA to indies, from very small to very, very big. So, the disclaimer, the first thing is that I'm not a trained therapist or psychologist. I'm just a game developer. So I don't have any certification. So a lot of things I'm going to say don't necessarily have a scientific backing. I want to keep it very, very high level and simple. It's a very complex subject matter. It's not something that I can explain in 30 minutes. But at the same time, we're going to explore some very, very, very specific points. And from that information, then you can expand your research and then you can find better correlations than I did. So I've been using myself as a guinea pig for several years, trying to reprogram my own brain and trying to gamify my life. I think it was for two reasons. One is that I'm a game designer and I wanted to know if I could use the techniques I've learned to make games and I could adapt them to different type of problems. So one of the problems that I sometimes suffer from is depression. So I was wondering if my depression was maybe just a question of that my life is badly designed, that I'm not experiencing my life in an optimal way. Like somebody who's not playing a game in an optimal way, or a designer would make a game that has not optimal mechanics or optimal, which creates a very negative feedback loop on the experience. I was trying to see if I could bring the same way of thinking into the way I approach life. One, the very, very important point, the human mind is very, very fragile. It's even more fragile than the human body. And when it breaks, when it fragments, it becomes extremely self-destructive, or it can be just destructive to people around the person that's falling into a very, very deep negative feedback loop. So it's not something you take delicately. You have to really, really approach it and be careful how you manipulate the human mind and how you interact with it as an external interface or as a platform for, how I said, gamification. It's something you have to be very, very careful with. So what's mental illness? That's very, 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 very difficult question to answer. There's a lot of point of views on that subject matter. For me, I always see it as the human brain is designed to survive. It's optimal when it comes in situations that you need to find solutions to survive. It becomes very, very, very weak to anything that's beyond that basic baseline. It's not designed to make us happy. Happiness is a construct, high level construct. It's not a basic function of life. So that's its limitation. So when it's put in a situation like in modern society, in Western cultures, where he doesn't need to think about survival, but he needs to find a way to be happy and well inside of a very, very, very intense information stream, very intense structure and a kind of a simulation. Then it's not it's not really helpful. We have to find it's helpful and sometimes not. And the other problem with mental illness is that it's hard to treat, very, very, very hard. The symptoms, the causes are subtle. It takes years and years to understand someone's mind, how it works, how the process, and what happened to them to arrive to a certain state. So it takes experts to really, really cure and do diagnostics, deep diagnostics of someone's mental issues. I always see mental illness as a type of fragmentation. The way I visualize it is basically, it's like looking yourself inside in a broken mirror. What happens is that you don't see a perfect reflection of yourself. You're not a one-to-one relation with yourself. There's something that makes the reflection seem offset. And that happens is that the mind, because it doesn't understand itself, it doesn't understand its full configuration, its full reality, that all the information that it inputs, all the information that it receives, it might not process it correctly. So we know, we have seen people with depression, and you look at their lives, and you look at the situation, and you look at it and you should say they should be happy. They have everything. The best example is Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain, the singer from Nirvana, who committed suicide at 27. That guy had everything. He basically, in the Western definition of success, he made it. But at the end, he ended up killing himself. So it's probably that his brain was just processing the information correctly. He was not adjust to reality. He was looking at himself and what is happening around him in a fragmented mirror, which made all his decisions incorrect. But at the same time, it did make him unique, and that uniqueness did make him very creative. So it's a question of point of view. If it was a certain sacrifice he had to do. And fragmentation is not a scientific term, it's my own term, it's my way of seeing things, or the way I visualize the human mind when it's not healthy. So to understand mental states and illness or well-being, you have to take in consideration that everything is on a scale. Nothing is black and white. People are not 100% depressed. People are not 100% sad. People are not 100% happy. They're always on a scale that's constantly moving. So it's you have to approach that with a lot of grace and not just black and white. The point of reference, the point where the goal, the final goal of happiness is having a consistent sense of well-being. If you can achieve that, then you consider it something that's healthy. And well-being is very subtle. Well-being doesn't mean that you're always happy, that you're always feeling good. Well-being is that basically things are balanced. You might be frustrated for 5 minutes, then you get back calm, and then you forget about it, and you continue your day. Somebody who's not healthy is going to get frustrated. He might have, I don't know, lost his watch, but the fact that he lost his watch, it just does a domino effect on his mind, and then he falls into a depression because he starts to think about how life is unjust and why just him and why his watch got lost, and it's very, 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 very unhealthy type of thinking. And what's really interesting about the mind and from our research about emotional intelligence is that we are constantly transitioning from one emotion to the other. Probably during this presentation until the end, I'm probably going to go from one emotion to the other. I might get frustrated because one of the slides are not working. Then I might become calm because everything is going well. Then I might become nervous because, oh, I forgot to say something. Is the camera still working? Is the microphone still okay? So you're always transitioning. Sometimes in microseconds, sometimes in minutes, but it's never persistent. Which brings me to, I'm not going to say his name, we all know him, is the guy who established the concept of flow. And flow is very popular concept and model in the game industry, and people who do research in game design. So the principle of flow is when challenge and skill become balance and on a progression curve, you're going to over time go into a state where we could consider it upper concentration, or a sense of the mind going in at its perfect, most optimal state. But the reality of it is that flow might last just 3-4 seconds, and you might go back into arousal, control, boredom for 2 seconds, and go back up to being worried and go back to control. So flow is not something that most people are going to feel all the time. But it's something that when things go well, if you have a perfect day, usually you're going to feel something that is really close to flow. And so I think it's very similar that you play Call of Duty and you're just killing it, and you're really dominating the map, and you're in this hyper concentration. Your mom gets in the room, starts screaming at you because you've been playing for 8 hours. You don't even know she's there, and you just purely focus on your screen. That's flow, and that's one of the best experiences you can have in life. But it's not consistent. It doesn't persist for hours and days and days and days, and which is okay, because it's not necessarily its purpose to persist forever. It's the highs are as important as the lows, and that's something you learn in game design when you start going in more granular type of precision game design. So the way to understand the human mind and the way to understand any type of emotion that we have is to understand its roots in survival. The mind, as I said before, the mind is designed to survive. It evolved to survive. So even the emotions all have a root principle around survival. So love is so romantic and so considered across the world as something that's almost magic. But for real, it's not magic. There's a reason for it. And the reason for it is that it's evolved because we needed something that would guarantee a connection between parents and their offspring. Parents love their children, and they love to the point that they're willing to sacrifice anything for their success. If there was not that emotion that didn't develop over time, then humans will not have taken care of their offspring and nurture their offspring to that level of consistency that makes us able to live longer and to learn more. So there's always a reason for everything, an evolution reason for every type of mental construct or cognitive construct, and even depression, which seems to be something new, that it's something, depression has just happened in the last 20 years. It's because we're technology, it's because we're over consuming, and but the real reason, depression always existed, and depression actually is a survival mechanism. Actually, it's the way for the brain to tell you that you're on the wrong path. There's something that's wrong, but you're not conscious of it. So it's basically trying to shut down the systems, shut down your interactions, so you can start meditating, you can start thinking again and trying to find and refine your balance. It's not something that's necessarily destructive all the time. So mental illness, there's a lot of different type of variations of it, and some are very, very, very deep, and some are chemical imbalances that I cannot help with my research. It's very, very too deep. On the scale of mental diseases, depression is the one that's, I think, the less aggressive one. It's the easiest one to approach, but at sometimes the most fascinating one, because a lot of people in Western culture suffer from it. And the reason that I'm interested by it is because depression tends to cause issues with your motivation levels and your decision-making process. Those are two things that game design plays with. Game design motivates players, motivates users to do certain actions. It puts players in the motivation loop, which we're going to see later. And decision-making process is very, very important. What you do in games most of the time is taking decisions, and game designers and experienced game designers know how to present decisions and how to orient a player or to entice a player to take a certain decision. So it's two things that game design can help us even outside of games. So why game design? Well, like I said before, I suspect that a lot of mental illnesses, or at least the versions that are really light, that don't caused by chemical imbalances or injury, are caused by the way we experience life. We don't experience life the right way. We tend to experience life in Western culture in very, very unbalanced ways. We have like an archetype of the perfect life that we all should live, but we don't have the way to reach that life, and we don't. And that archetype is not necessarily custom to every type of personality. So I think it's really a question of how a lot of people who go into depression, I think a lot of the time is that they just don't know how to live, and they don't have the tools to learn to design their life and design their interactions with life. So modern game design techniques, I mean that the new game designers, the people who come out of Ubisoft, or come out of Nintendo, or come out with new way, I would say, a lot of research and development around the subject of I've found a lot of tools and principles to help engage the mind in take any type of experience, whatever it's a physical experience like a sport, or a virtual experience like a VR game, how to make it more immersive and how to make it more engaging, and basically bring a person into a state of flow. So all those game design do that, and that's basically, there's a collection of principles that's been built over years from different studios, from varied research groups, They're well known, they're pretty easy, and they're not new. They're just things that we already existed, but the game industry rediscovered them, and now other industries are discovering what the game industry has discovered. Then that's why like I get recruited by companies that do simulations. I get recruited by marketing companies, and because they're discovering that that people in the game industry have discovered new approaches to designing experiences that might be helpful for so many different fields. So one of the principles we're going to look at is RCR and SNF, and likely I'm going to explain progression curves, which is really interlinked with OCR. Well, the first thing when you start talking about game design, a lot of people will say, well, game design is about fun. And to tell you the truth, the word fun, it's not something I use, or my colleagues in the industry, more senior colleagues, don't use that term anymore. And the reason is because it's very abstract. And it's not the goal of it's not the source inspiration of good game design. It's a byproduct, it's a construct that happens, and we cannot guarantee it's always going to happen. What we can guarantee is that we can set up the context where fun and the experience of fun can emerge from. But you cannot evaluate the quality of a game or the quality of a design by is it fun or not. That's very abstract approach, and there's a lot of false positives if you take that type of a mentality. What you tend to look into terms you want to see happen, or qualifications you want to emerge from a design, is it engaging? Is it immersive? Those are words that are more concrete, because something that's engaging and immersive usually might become very fun for certain people. And it's the same thing for happiness. You cannot make someone happy. It's impossible. You cannot just say, I want to buy you something, you're going to be happy tomorrow. You can create some excitement, but you cannot make someone create happiness. Because it's a construct. It's a mental construct that can only occur in certain contexts, and it emerges when the right ingredients, the right context and are balanced, and that emotion, that it's not really an emotion, but that mental state has fertile ground to grow, to exist. So it's, I recommend to stay away from those the word fun. It's very abstract, and it's very high level, and it's not. I said, modern game designers, it's not a word I recommend to use across any research. Happiness and flow. Happiness and flow are not necessarily the same mental construct, but there's some correlations between them. The ultimate goal of game design, of a good game, is to bring you in a state of flow, because that's the perfect experience. You're just fully engaged and fully immersed in the experience, and what gets people addicted to your game. That's what people come back to play your game. And therapy is to bring in the patient and achieve a persistent well-being, aka happiness. But both states of mind seem to have deep correlations. So I was wondering if I can, with the same processes, can I bring well-being through creating flow in my life? And well-being, can it help me get into states of flow faster too? So these are interesting questions. And if you read, I'm not going to say his name because I'm going to screw it up. But in his book, I think he wrote several books on that subject. He talks about flow not just in context of gaming. He talks about a principle on people who are just living their life and they're happy they explain how they feel every day, and the way they feel is very seems very similar to the state sometimes I feel when I play an MMO and everything is just going well and everything is flowing. I'm going from one quest to the other and I'm getting rewarded. I'm leveling up and just everything seems balanced. Everything seems to be progressing. So the concept of flow, it can easily be adapted outside of games and into your experience of life. So the core principles we're going to cover about game design: OCR. OCR is usually well known between game designers. It's a very simple process concept that's existed way before video games became popular, and the goal of it, or the basic principle of it, is that games are basically experienced through OCR loops. So you see in a game, you have always an objective, a challenge, and a reward. So you have a game where you get a mission, and the mission is that you have to kill that guy for whatever reason, the guy in the white jacket. You have to kill him because he's a bad guy. So you have that objective. The challenge is that you have to find him and kill him in a way that you're not going to get arrested. And the reward is, it might be an achievement, it might be upgrades, it might be whatever. And some objectives are very simple. Some objectives are just, hey, go from one point to point B, run from point A from point B. And a lot of tutorials are like that. You know, GTA 5, there's a tutorial where you're just following somebody while running, and it's a mission in itself, but it's an objective. Just follow that person, run. The challenge is just to stay within a certain distance from the person, and the reward is whatever. You know, and what games are really good, and we're going to see it later. Games are very good at rewarding. But in real life, you're actually living OCR loops all day long. You're crossing the street during a red light. You're basically in an OCR loop. Your objective is to get across the street as fast as possible. And your challenge is not to get hit by a car. And your reward, and that's what's a little bit more subtle. Sadly, in life, there's no one who's going to give you an achievement. There's no one usually is going to give you praise for crossing the street but again you hit a car. Most experienced OCR loops in life don't have clear rewards, or if you get rewards, it's not immediate. It's not specific. Usually, it takes years and years before you get it, or even that, you're not going to experience the reward in itself. It's very subtle. But something, if you go to work every day, is an OCR loop. If you have a really boring day job, your OCR loop is to survive the 8 hours or the 7 hours. And your reward is not, maybe at the end of the day, you might not get a reward, but in 2 weeks, you get your paycheck. So we tend to experience things in loops, and life is very loopy. It's in cycles, so it feels So games and life sometimes feel alike because games inspire a lot of systems and games are inspired by natural cycles, natural systems. And OCR is sometimes really also known as motivation loops, but they're not exactly the same concept. So this is a typical motivation loop diagram. That's what's really interesting is that and game designers do it a lot. Is that there's always a micro loop. So the micro loop is if you take the example of crossing the street because you want to get to work faster, but on red lights and not get hit, that might be a micro loop, micro loop. Your macro loop could be finishing the day. Your meta loop might be your month, ending the month without being in debt, so getting paid. It's very, like I would say, layered. So OCR loops, they might have layers and layers of OCR loops in a game. Sometimes you don't notice them, but you're constantly in that loop of macro, macro, and meta loops. Same thing with life. We have daily challenges, we have weekly challenges, and we have yearly challenges. And so you're going to isolate them. And understanding and seeing life that way is actually, I find it really helpful because you start to understand that to be successful, you have to be good in the micro loops as well as the macro loops and the meta loops. They all feed into each other. They're not separate elements. So if you want to have a good year, a successful year, then you have to have good days, as many good days you can have. So you have 365 days in a year. So you're going to try to have as many as possible. But to have a good day, then you have to have good hours, or at least have a good experience during the day, a good experience during the night, and a good experience before going to sleep, and a good experience before waking up, and optimize that time. And then that week, if you do it for a week, that week is going to get, it's going to be a better experience, more higher quality, and it's just going to grow like this. And then at the end of the year, you're just going to have a very, very productive year. So like I said, OCR, daily OCRs crossing the street, a day at work. But the big difference between video games and real life is that video games, we do something that real life doesn't do, which it's very, very important. And that's why people get addicted to games. People tend to sometimes prefer living through games and living their own life. And it's the rewards. Games tend to reward you all the time. Sometimes too much, but I guarantee you're always going to get a reward for almost everything you do in a game. Sometimes it's very small. You might have a sound that just clings. It might be the scream of an enemy that just died, and it's perfectly recorded, and it just comes in at the perfect moment, and it just gives you a sense of power. It might be when you do pickups. You just pick up, and it's like bing, 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 and it just gets higher and higher in pitch as you gain more pickups and bonuses, achievements, and all those things just creates that sense of you're always progressing and you always have positive feedback for everything you do. But life doesn't have that. Life rewards are very subtle. They're not persistent, and they're not balanced to your daily and general objectives and challenges you might experience. This is an example.
Might just win this.
If you, I don't know if you can hear the sound of the leaderboard or the scoreboard. Everything that's designed here has a purpose. The sound, the colors, the icons, the way that it just text. Then you just hear this, then it shows you the icon and the value to create a level of anticipation. But you see how many information you have on your screen, you know, how much signs and feedback you get every time you end a mission, and the goal of it is that it is to give you a sense of progression, of domination, of a sense of value to the experience you just had. But life doesn't have that. At the end of the day, you don't go home and you don't have a leaderboard with scores coming on the screen and a bonus and a new achievement and an upgrade on your clothing. You don't get that in life. So life tends to be less rewarding than simulations. And that consequence that you can, if you have any unbalance or issues in managing this reality, you can go into a negative feedback loop in the sense that because life is not giving you the just rewards to what you're perceiving is the efforts you're investing in to achieve your goals, then or achieve a certain basic well-being, then you're just going to go into a negative feedback loop. Then the mind in general, in nature, has access to a lot of rewards because things are more immediate, the more clear, because usually in the context of survival. But in modern life, no, you don't really have, you don't have to survive every day. You just basically have to do what you have to do. You're really in a situation where you might die if you don't go hunt, and you might die if you don't, I don't know, find a specific solution to a problem. Most of our modern life is designed or around comfort. But the human mind in its natural states doesn't necessarily like this. Usually it doesn't want comfort. It wants constant challenge, growth, and it wants immediate rewards. So modern culture, Western culture, has tried through customer culture to feed that loop. That's why fast food and American mass consumer culture becomes so popular, because it's an easy reward system. You could, only people between lunch break go shop to just give themselves a reward to have just went to work, woke up and went to work. Other people go in front of the McDonald's and said, I need a reward today because I had a long day and I need a sense of completion. But you can see, in consequence, you can see that obesity, death, and depression seems to be linked together very much. So, and it's pretty obvious why, because if you because it's the easiest reward loop to get into, people tend to get addicted to it. Life is difficult, so they tend to eat more, they buy more. And the consequence is that because there's a disconnection between the real expected reward and the artificial one that they buy themselves or they get from other means, the human mind tends to refuse that programming. It tends to solely understand that this is not a real reward. This is an artificial system. It's something that it doesn't feed what it needs to be fed. So the other very, very popular principles, it's called science and feedback. Science and feedback are very important in game design and in games in general. You mostly perceive them in UI interfaces, but they're everywhere. And modern game designers, especially AAA game designers, people who do casino games too, understand them very, very, very well. The reward screen from Destiny I showed you before is basically a collection of science and feedback. The icons, the colors, the sounds, the animations are all science and feedback information. Example, you see them in racing games when you see the racing line and the color changes when you go too fast or too slow. That's another feedback sign. And what does it do? It helps you immerse yourself. It gives you meta information. It gives you it makes things more obvious and it guides you through the experience. And more importantly, it gives you a sense of constant progression. So, if you look at that screenshot, I think it's from Sims, it's quite interesting because imagine if in real life you had this information over you. If everybody you met, you had their stats, they had their desires, the fears, the salary, you had that kind of information that would help you take a decision on how you're going to interact with them. Then life would be way more easier, and it would maybe quite more interesting because then the decisions you take and are going to be more based on tactical and instead of just abstractions and guesses. One thing that really ignores players of games is that when you give them two decisions to door A or door B, but there's no information that might help them take a real decision. If the door B and A look the same and there's nothing that just indicates, ooh, B seems more risky, but there might be some rewards. A is it looks less risky, but the room looks dark if I look at the corners. So an example, door B could be have smoke coming from it, but there's gold. You see like reflections of gold on the in the cracks. But door A is completely dark, but there's a sound of a very of music, calming music. So you basically now giving them meta information that really gives them the chance to take a real decision instead of just guessing. But most of our experience in life is about we guess. I guess that person doesn't like me. I guess this person likes me. I guess that I should take that job instead of that job because everything is so subtle, so abstract that it's very hard to take a real decision. So the question now is that can you live life like a game? And that's a very interesting question because a lot of people are asking this. across the several industries. I know somebody referred to me a paper which mentioned that you should live life like an RPG. My answer is no. And the reason is that the first thing why approaching life like a game is very dangerous is that games are designed, life is not. Games have predictable and consistent states. Even procedural games, even games are supposedly random, and usually there's a certain consistency, and the states are persistent. In the sense that if you die in a game, you don't lose everything. In life, you die, you lose everything. And life is subject to chaos and entropy. It means that there's no game master. There's no balancing. So there's the element of luck is less control that you're going to get in a simulation like a game, even a casino game. Games always, in a way or another, guides you on the right path. Sometimes very, very, very solidly, but most games tend to keep you in the sandbox. Life, everything is very, very solid. Everything is very, very abstract. So if you try to live life or you expect life to act like a game, you're going to be disappointed. And that's why we play games instead of playing life. Games offer us things that life doesn't offer. But my answer is also yes. I do believe it's possible in the future when we have better tools that we will be able to basically design our lives and our reality. I'm not saying that we're going to all live in virtual worlds. I mean, we're going to be able to take more control of the circumstance and the information that we experience. And that is going to help a lot of people find balance and help a lot of people with mental illness rediscover what they're missing, rediscover, basically take the fragmented mirror and just take the pieces and put them together. By having something that's helping them better understand the information and the cognitive process they're going through. So the right technology we could possibly gamify completely our life. So one technology is augmented reality. Augmented reality, cool if it becomes embedded like on glasses or contact lenses, or even in a more organic way. It could become our SNF. We could have constantly signs and feedback information, meta information that's going to help us take all those decisions and helps us deal with the complexity and the abstractions of life, and even make life maybe more fun too. Like the example of just crossing the street can be resolved and create an OCR loop that's interesting on a daily basis. And AI can become our game master in the sense that assisted AI that's designed to live with us and help us in our daily cognitive processes, and not just tell us what to do, but make us discover what we need to discover, and help us grow through natural processes. That can really become really boring. Really not boring, but really interesting. So basically, we could have an assisted AI that's going to make sure that our daily life is never bored. It's always challenged by finding us work, finding us playing with us in a way, and by playing with us, teaching us how to balance all the problems we're having. Basically, designing our daily experience. So, an example here, that's an AR overlay. Imagine that every day, if you saw that every day when you go to work, regardless all this meta information. Now it's basically simple things, it's basically telling you where things are. But it could be stuff like achievements. Oh, you crossed the street 2 seconds faster than yesterday. Oh, do you want to play a game? Okay, try to get to the other end of the street 5 seconds faster. Or you never visited that place, you should visit it because it's going to give you a new experience and it's going to enrich your daily life. Or it could just give you information about what's happening today, what you should be doing, what guiding you towards more variety. And the biggest issue with that, because of course AR in itself is not going to be interesting, but AR mixed with AI, assisted AI, is going to be really, really interesting. But the problem now is that we're basically designing AI to beat us. We are basing that to, and that it's kind of a construct that's very, very dangerous at the end, because it's limiting the possibility. Imagine instead we develop AI that enhance our lives, enhance us, instead of competing with us. The other thing too is that instead of focusing on trying to create new simulations of reality, why don't we focus on enhancing the real space, the real world, what we're actually living right now with the technologies. You know, a lot of people use virtual reality as a tool for therapy. The problem with that is that still using artificial spaces when the real issue is that we have that what we need to when we go into therapy is to understand ourselves and the way we interact and the way we experience life in real space, in reality, where things really happen. So technology like AR and AI will give us the tools to gamify, to use concepts that we find in game that I showed you about modern game design, and actually use them to enhance our sense of reality without disconnecting from it. So the future, from I believe, or at least the one I would like to see, is to see us combine all those advancements in gamification, in AI and AR, into creating in giving us the tools to design our own lives and to help us go into a state of flow and well-being, in which, in consequence, I believe will solve a lot of the issues we're having in modern society with mental illness. Not all of them, of course, because some are very more complex, and I don't think cannot be only solved by technology and design. But I do believe there's possibilities, and we should continue exploring them.